Last week, communal violence erupted in Odisha's Cuttack, and almost 31 people, including many policemen, were injured.
It's not merely coincidental that a series of the Cuttack violence is happening within a year of BJP coming to power after for the first time in Odisha. Not just in Odisha, but wherever BJP in recent times have come to power, such kind of pop culture, Hindutva culture, creation of songs which are utterly derisive of the Muslim community and other minority groups, very abusive songs, and generally a celebration of Hindutva aggression. These kind of songs are a recent import in Odisha. Even normal festivals like Dussehra or Diwali turn into events where BJP and the larger Sangh Parivar can advance or propagate their Hindutva aggression. And what better occasion for the Sangh Parivar to advance their Hindutva majoritarian politics than Hindu festivals. Cuttack is known for its filigree silver works and very fine silver work. Most of the craftsmen and artisans are Muslims. Even these Durga idols, which are also made by Muslim artisans, and they are an equal part of these Durga Puja festivities. So that is why everyone is shocked that we have seen nothing like that.
Hello and welcome to this special live show for The Wire. Communal violence is something that is quite common in North India these days. You get to hear news from Uttar Pradesh, Madhya Pradesh, Bihar, and from other regions in India. But there's one place, one state where these kind of incidents are unheard of, and that is Odisha. But last week, communal violence erupted in Odisha's Cuttack, and almost 31 people, including many policemen, were injured. Now, how this violence transpired, what happened, and why is Odisha's violence being discussed so keenly in the media? We are here to discuss this with Ajoy Ashirwad, who's Wire's political editor, and also he's from Odisha. So, Ajoy, thank you and welcome to this live show. I want to begin I want to begin by asking you what happened in Cuttack last week.
So, Alishan, first of all, you're right that communal violence is something which is not very common in Odisha. Although I would say that uh, there were certain elements who kind of propagated communal prejudices in Odisha for a and they have been around for a long time, especially against Christians. But what we saw in Cuttack, when Dussehra celebrations turned into an event where Hindus and Muslims fought against each other for the first time in Cuttack, which has a 1,000-year-old history of communal harmony. So this was unheard of, especially in Cuttack, because Cuttack is. Let me tell our audience that Odisha has merely 2% Muslim population, and the Christian population is a little more than Muslims, and it's largely a Hindu dominated state, Odisha. But the people have generally, we had heard of communal violence in 2008, which was anti-Christian violence in Kandhamal. And after that, we all know how Naveen Patnaik broke ranks with the BJP. He was an ally and started contesting on his own, and since then BJD has been power. So it's not merely coincidental that a series of the Cuttack violence is happening within a year of BJP coming to power after for the first time in Odisha.
Yeah,
So, and also I must tell you that Cuttack has seen communal violence for the first time, but ever since BJP became a political party which became a natural opposition party to the BJD ahead of 2024. And so ever since that, we have seen series of small communal uh, eruptions and violence in various parts of Odisha, Cuttack being the latest incident.
Sure. Ajoy, but the template seems to be quite North Indian. If you look at it, the songs, the reels that were coming out of Cuttack, and the ones we saw on Instagram and other platforms, social media platforms, it's something that you don't see in places, mostly in the South. You don't see music like that. It's the Hindutva pop culture.
Yes.
That's something. That there are, in fact, very few players like Sandeep Acharya and this Krishna guy. So these are the fellows who make these Hindutva pop kind of music videos. But it was for the very long time, limited to North Indian audiences. Now, is it being now imported to other parts of India?
Yeah, it's not just in Odisha, but exported, not just in Odisha, but wherever BJP in recent times have come to power, such kind of pop culture, Hindutva culture, creation of songs which are utterly derisive of the Muslim community and other minority groups, very, very abusive songs, and generally a celebration of Hindutva aggression. These kind of songs are a recent import in Odisha. Like in other various states of India where BJP has come to power, and suddenly we see a spurt of these kind of pop culture where even normal festivals like Dashera or Diwali turn into events where BJP and the larger Sangh Parivar can advance or propagate their Hindutva aggression. And what better occasion for the Sangh Parivar to advance their Hindutva majoritarian politics than Hindu festivals, which have a history of peaceful celebration in India. So, but yes, please.
In fact, I was reading this report on the Wire and other places as well, where and we were also chatting about it, that in Odisha you see Hindus and Muslims, they contribute to each other's festivals, they enrich each other's festivals, and that is something that doesn't really happen now in other places.
So let me talk about Cuttack. See what happens. Cuttack, why do we say that Cuttack has 1,000-year-old history of communal harmony? Because because many of our audience do not know much about what's happening in Odisha. So let me just put a few points out right now. Cuttack, Odisha has 2% Muslim population, mostly concentrated in cities, especially Bhadrak, Cuttack, and Balasore. All these three cities have seen communal violence or communally violent incidents, small and big, over the course of last 1.5 years. First, it was Bhadrak, where anti-Muslim violence first kind of became a thing in Bhadrak before BJP came to power. Just 6 or 7 months before BJP came to power, when BJP was trying very hard to dislodge the Naveen Patnaik government, and when the Mohan Majhi government and the BJP came to power, immediately within a month we saw the Hindutva groups turning berserk against in Balasore, and destroyed Muslim properties and beat up Muslim people and blamed it on Muslims for provoking that violence. And exactly, so there is a set template which I'll talk about. But what happened in Cuttack? So let me give a brief background of what happens generally in Dashera. Dashera, unlike West Bengal, where there are different puja committees and different clubs organizing puja pandals, Odia Durga Puja culture is slightly different, where pandals are not that big, but it's the deity or the larger frames of goddess Durga. They are celebrated, and each of these Durga Pujas in different mohallas of Odisha, they have a different tradition, and it's not like a uniform kind of puja. The traditions of puja in different temples are different. The goddess Durga is also called by different names in different different places. So, and what happens? So, and that is the USP of Odisha. They are this deity, this whole Durga and other deities coming together. They are called medha in Odia, and and they are celebrated, and they are worshipped, and it's a festive season. And on the day of the Dashera, immersion ceremony of these deities in the rivers, flanking Cuttack, which is Kattajodi Nadi, and river, and Mahanadi River. That itself is also a huge occasion for people to come and celebrate. And what happens? This all these, like, say for example, there are 10 different deities of Durgas of different mohallas, and all of them have different effigies. Yeah, they are just frameworks. No, they are called medhas. So all these puja committees, they come together, gather at one point of the city, and then go together in a procession to immerse the deities in the river. This time, after the BJP came to power, the nature of the Durga Puja changed slightly. In Bengal, we know that political parties like Trinamool Congress and earlier the communist parties, they used to kind of sponsor many of the puja pandals to kind of gain political control. The similar pattern was used by the BJP to sponsor these puja pandals, where not merely the deities, but the pandals became huge this time in Odisha, in an effort to kind of celebrate Hindu traditions and culture according to the BJP. And it's not just the BJP, but it was the Odisha government which allocated over 7.5 crores to sponsor different deities. Around 215 puja pandals were donated, more than a lakh. Old ones, and the kind of newer puja pandals were given 50,000 or 75,000 by straight from the Odisha government, from the public exchequer. It's not the party sponsoring these temples. So these puja committees also became a platform for the BJP to advance its politics and celebrate Hindutva culture. So it wasn't just immersion ceremony which became very aggressive, but also during the puja we saw what happens with when money comes in. When money comes in, then there was a template which was set, which we generally see in UP, Kavar Yatra. DJs, what were earlier kind of people who came and sang Odia songs. Now that whole culture became a little more consumerist, and the DJs came in. Loud music entered the Odia celebratory landscape with these kind of Hindutva pop songs, different kind of very, very, loud, bassy music, which were rip-offs from film music. It became that kind of a Durga Puja rather than being purely devotional. So that's perfectly fine, as long as people accept it. But what was generally very noticeable this time, that the saffron color and generally Hindutva symbols, I could see in different pandals, which was never happened in Odisha before. That this saffron colored pandals, and the pandals made in a way to resemble the Ram Mandir of Ayodhya. So these kind of things came in, and these kind of trishul, or these saffron flags, or the angry Hanuman symbol, all of these which were until now associated by the BJP and the Sangh Parivar to advance Hindutva majoritarianism, these became a kind of slowly, gradually were incorporated into the Durga Puja celebrations of Odisha. This wasn't incidental. That is why I think Cuttack violence had an elements of pre-planning.
Sure, Ajoy, but since you mentioned that that there are different elements, not just the music or the Hindutva pop, that's quite that openly it's openly provocative and addresses Muslims and other minorities as outsiders, infiltrators, and who will have to either accept Hinduism or leave or be killed, or things like that. That are some of the lyrics of these songs are just as I described them. So it's not just that. So you were saying that like Rekha Gupta's government in Delhi,
Hmm.
they were having some a very organized effort, in fact,
Hmm.
in how the whole Kawar Yatra
Hmm.
Patals were being organized around Delhi. So and the kind of news that was coming from UP,
Yes.
कि कहीं पर भी there was violence in
Hmm.
different places, कि कहीं पर कोई गुस्से में जो है उनको
Hmm.
हड्डी मिल गई या कुछ हो गया. But it's not just that. If you see in the last 1 year,
Hmm.
even videos of cow vigilantism,
Hmm.
they've started coming out,
Yes, yes.
and not just the Muslims, but also there are reports and there are accusations of
Hmm.
rise in anti-Christian sentiments
And
and
yes.
accusations against
Hmm.
Christians converting other people to Christianity, and that's something that's now just raising its head again in Odisha.
Yes. So exactly what I'm trying to say. See, the previous Naveen Patnaik government, Odisha is a very deeply religious, Hindu religious state, but it wasn't necessarily anti-Muslim or anti-Christian. It is a very God-fearing state. It's a very faithful state. Lord Jagannath cult kind of reigns supreme in the public imagination of people in Odisha, and because of which Naveen Patnaik government also towards the end of his last tenure allocated a substantial budget for all older temples to be renovated, and many of which the Lord Jagannath temple in Puri was renovated at a grand scale. But even small temples where which are kind of very popular among select devotees, they were also given a lot of money
Right.
for renovation works. So that was a completely different thing. What the BJP government hasn't done anything. In fact, what Naveen Patnaik had started to renovate a lot of different temples in different villages and towns, that has I saw most of it has having been stopped, and nothing is kind of if the construction had reached a certain stage when Naveen Patnaik had lost power, it's still at that stage. Chandi Mandir of Cuttack being one, which is like right now an open temple with half construction only, and people still queuing up to kind of worship the deity there. So but what BJP is doing, BJP is kind of milking these kind of traditions, cultures, and festivals to kind of make these festivals more aggressive, more anti, where there are Muslims, they're trying to make it anti-Muslim. If you go to Kandamal, then the messaging, the political messaging through these kind of communitarian festivals is anti-Christian. So they are trying this. What happened in Cuttack that day? This all these different deities congregated at one place, and which the police had organized, which the administration every year organizes. But suddenly there was a change of plan for a change of route of this procession, and these puja committees, which were very very aggressive. And generally these immersion ceremonies, we all know that it's an occasion for revelry where young people drink and behave aggressively. But this time there was a very markedly political, saffron political color to these immersions, and where hooligan elements entered these immersion ceremony and deliberately insisted on passing through Muslim dominated Dargah Bazar of Cuttack. And this all of it was happening at 2 a.m., 2:30 a.m. on
Right.
the morning after Dashera, when immersion ceremony generally happens. And initially the rumor went that when these processions were passing with this renewed what renewed with this new element of DJ driven music,
Right.
boxes, yeah, DJ with very very loud music at 3 a.m. through a residential Muslim neighborhood. So the initial analysis was that some people objected, because of which a skirmish happened, and that blew into a large scale fighting with stones and glass bottles. But later, many people who I spoke with, who had investigated what had happened, was that it started off as a very small skirmish, between a few young boys when this procession was passing. Uh, some people kind of fell over a few Muslim boys who were trying to kind of see things. How, everyone sees. It's not like when this immersion ceremony is a communitarian event. I have so many Muslim friends there for whom it's like it's in everyone. If you are a bunch of friends of Muslims and Hindus, you go to this immersion ceremony to just see. Okay, because it's like a mela, it's like a fair where you go out, eat, go with families and see the deities
Right.
and then come back. So they were also there to see, but something happened there, and because of which Muslims went out and helped, and that blew into a huge scale violence. But what happened after that is
Exactly.
more important. And I would like to spend
Yeah.
some time on
Ajay, so
what happened after the initial round of violence.
definitely, I
Yeah,
was this
yeah,
is my last question to you.
yeah.
You know, so there's always this possibility that there can be violence or communal violence in a country like India, especially during festivals,
Mm.
and the tendency of these things to happen now has suddenly increased. But uh, what happened in Cuttack,
Mm.
the next day the administration could have done things to restore peace or
Yes. Mm.
call for calm. But on the other hand, you saw the Vishwa Hindu
Mm.
Parishad organize this bike rally, and
Yeah.
then there was further violence,
Mm.
and then they had to impose an
Mm.
internet shutdown.
Yes.
So, do you think that this government, the BJP government in Odisha, are they failing? Because there are also accusations. The MLA from Cuttack, Sofia
Mm.
Firdaus, she's also accused. By the way,
Yes.
she's a Muslim MLA in a city like Cuttack. That's, as you pointed out,
Yeah.
that's again a
No,
symbol.
so see, listen,
Yeah.
the Cuttack has Cuttack,
Let me just
yeah.
complete. So, since the accusations and the pressure is also mounting on the BJP government, and what have they really done, and what do you think lies ahead for Odisha?
So yeah, so that is what I'll come to. But look at why everyone's shocked at Cuttack's violence, because this Durga Puja is actually is actually a syncretic event where Cuttack is known for its filigree silver works and very fine silver work. Most of the craftsmen and artisans are
Muslims, yeah.
Muslims. So I was talking about different traditions of how the deities or the idols are made. In some places the deities are made of gold, in some places the deities are the murti, the idol is made of silver, and all these artisans, so the Durga's idols are made by Muslims,
And the
artists,
silver
Muslim,
work is also done by
yeah,
these Muslim
Muslim
artisans. Yeah.
artisans. So these Durga idols, which are also made by Muslim artisans, and they are an equal part of these Durga Puja festivities. So that is why everyone is shocked that we have seen nothing like that. And Cuttack is also one of those. Cuttack Muslim population is around 10% or 12% there, but Cuttack is one of those cities in Odisha which has elected a Muslim MLA, Sofia Firdaus. Her father, Muhammad Mukim, was a Congress leader. He has also been elected as an MLA many times, which means a substantial number of Hindu voters have voted for a Muslim candidate at a time when in North India, different secular parties are struggling to field a Muslim candidate because to avoid polarization. So Cuttack is actually an exception. And that is what I think had always bothered Sangh Parivar. Syncretism is something which has bothered Sangh Parivar. And what after that, and how we know that? Because after the first round of violence, what we saw was a reign of terror under the BJP government. Mohan Manji comes and gives a statement that the violence, first round of violence happened because of some miscreants, and Cuttack is known for its communal harmony and brotherhood. And look at his double speak, because when Cuttack's police had imposed section 144, the next day the VHP took out a bike rally beating up Muslim young people. In many places I have
Even
seen
policemen.
in policemen, and I've seen some Instagram videos where some Muslim young people were were captured, and they were undressed and beaten up. Their shops, their houses were set ablaze. They were destroyed. This is what happened during this aggressive VHP rally, Vishwa Hindu Parishad rally, which raised again those Hindutva pop kind of songs and slogans like Jai Shri Ram, which is an alien slogan in Odisha, especially during Durga Puja. During Ram Navami, it's fine. You give a slogan of Jai Shri Ram, but not during Durga Puja. But why this procession was not a defense of Hindus, but more an advancement of BJP's Hindutva politics is right there for us to see, as is evident from many small videos how people are raising these slogans. Jai Shri Ram, they are saying that in the ये देश ये हिंदुओं का है, in Odia. I'm just translating it. Hindu and rest everyone is a Deshdrohi. This is what they said. I'm translating it as it was said in Odisha, and these kind of hateful slogans just to kind of provoke Muslims. So this is what happened during the procession also. At 2 a.m. you are raising these kind of slogans, you are playing these kind of hateful songs just to kind of provoke Muslims that if there is some response, they can all organize together. And within 5 or 6 hours, even as police was trying to avoid any kind of further disturbances, these guys had already organized themselves as if it was a pre-planned thing, and organized, defied the police and administration, and defied the BJP's chief minister himself, and organized a bike rally and indulged in large-scale violence. Then a curfew was imposed, and then VHP was allowed to give a Bandh call, and in which they almost held the city to ransom. And such, so this is a pattern which I have observed in UP. Why? Because BJP across India, BJP's political thrust or political game is to polarize the society, to divide the society in different. Ever since because Odisha has only 2% Muslims, BJP is still struggling to kind of decide on which way to take. Until now, yeah, until now it was, their thrust was anti-Christian, but anti-Christian, the Christians are kind of concentrated in few tribal pockets. So there they are kind of they have a long history of Christian versus tribal politics, playing like on the lines of Jharkhand. But this Cuttack, Baleswar, Bhadrak, which has seen anti-Muslim violence in the last 1 year, this is the area where BJP was at its weakest. And this is where it wanted to kind of have some long-term polarization game. But because the Muslims are only concentrated in a few cities and are only 2%, it's very difficult to make Muslims the enemy there. Like it's easier for them in UP and Bihar, where Muslims are larger in numbers, but not in Odisha. So they initially tried to kind of run a hateful campaign against Bengali migrants, that Bengalis are trying to take over us, and they tried to kind of do something along the lines of Bengali versus Odia. And once that had like kind of governance ramifications, with Mamta Banerjee kind of raining down on Mohan Manji government on how and writing government level letters to Mohan Manji government to secure Bengali migrants there. So Mohan Manji government was on the defensive, and it knew that it could not, because the laborers who come to Odisha, they need them, and a lot of activities depend on them. So they could not run it. So whenever there is a chance, they like to polarize it. During Durga Puja became an ideal time to polarize against Muslims, where in Cuttack, especially Cuttack, where Muslims have a lot of businesses, also have a lot of shops. They wanted you, if you see the VHP rally, they specifically targeted the shops and commercial establishments owned by Muslims in order to kind of cripple them economically. So this is what they are trying to do, and at the same time running a false narrative that it was Muslims who attacked first. But you see a template everywhere in UP, in Bihar, in Bengal, in that you deliberately provoke people, and if some people get provoked, and that suddenly turns into a large scale violence, and it becomes that and Muslims immediately become the immediate social enemies, and this is what they are trying to emulate in Odisha also, and this is what they are trying to. Mohan Manji government, despite saying all of these things, he and has given complete immunity to these kind of elements to run, to do their thing, do their violent things on the streets. Why couldn't they stop the VHP rally? Why couldn't they stop? And after the VHP's bike rally, which had completely turned violent, they still allowed VHP to have a bandh, which went largely peaceful. But the work was already done. But this is what is happening, and everywhere you see, you spoke about how cow vigilantism, which was unheard of again in Odisha, has marked an entry in Odisha. Dalits are now getting beaten up, publicly flogged. Anti-Christian violence has increased, and everywhere it is small things. These communal inflagrations have started to happen, and all of this in I don't know about so much about Odisha, whether it's pre-planned or not, but in UP and Bihar, I have covered extensively that most of these small communally violent incidents are pre-planned. How? Yeah. So in Odisha, there is a huge possibility that these are pre-planned agitations, and the government should investigate them ideally. But like we think that Manchi government, which is the BJP government, was completely found struggling when VHP was doing its thing.
Thank you, Odia.
Yeah,
I think there's also at the end of the day an element where you need an enemy, because that just makes your whole campaign.
It's not need. It's BJP's only political thrust. Although it talks about development, its actual political thrust on the ground, not just in Odisha but everywhere, is to polarize the society. Once that polarization is done, their vote bank becomes consolidated.
Yeah.
But in Odisha, they've been struggling to polarize because you don't have an evident enemy in front of you, or evident, or you have to create those. Yes. So, and they wanted to play with, they wanted to over emphasize on Hindu religion a lot in different spaces, but Odisha was already a deeply religious state, so they actually don't know, and they're experimenting currently in this 1.5 years of uh, uh, governance, while actually doing nothing on the development front. All the schemes that Naveen Patnaik had started, they've just changed the names of those schemes and are running those same schemes.
Like you mentioned that UP, Bihar, and other places, it was very common. But if you see the pattern in the last few years, it's not just UP and Bihar. I mean, I have extensively covered Uttarakhand, for example.
Yes, Uttarakhand is actually the laboratory now.
Just let me complete. So the whole Dev Bhumi narrative that it just came out of nowhere. There were no, instances of violence in Uttarakhand earlier. Then in Himachal Pradesh, then they started this whole thing in other places, and it's these smallest spaces where there are, I think, less than 10% Muslims, in some places less than 7% Muslims, except for I think Gujarat.
Yes.
कहीं पर भी इस तरीके का नहीं है.
नहीं, everywhere. Gujarat, their model was large scale violence, and then it stopped because they could manage to shut up the Muslim community. In other places, they are still trying to, in that process of trying to silence the Muslim community entirely. But as I said, that it's not just like silencing the Muslim community. Then you need to find something to polarize. It could be Bengali migrants one day, it could be Christian missionaries one day, it could be Dalit cattle traders one day, and it could be Muslims. Depending on the political circumstances or the social circumstances, they devise their strategy, but their only game is to polarize the society, despite all the doublespeak that their chief ministers do. In this case, what Mohan Manji said, he did not mean it at all, because his actions did not reflect what he actually said. So this is what has happened over, and ever, like I said, Naveen Patnaik to kind of encouraged religious institutions and donated to it, but it did not ever kind of went the violent way. As and suddenly in the one and a half years that the BJP has come to power, we see a sudden spurt of communal violence, and because there's one party which benefits from polarization, and then there are other parties which does not want to employ or deploy polarization as a political strategy. That's the political game, according to my understanding.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you.
thank you.